Are you ready for the last chapter of the book of the report card, chapter 22, and this one's called The Next Good Thing. It took a while to get everyone settled in the media center. The chairs and tables were pushed aside, and the kids sat on the floor in the middle of the room. All the grown-ups and teachers sat on chairs at the edges and in the back. It didn't feel like an assembly or weekly meeting. There was no squirming, no whispering, no giggling. There wasn't even any smiling. It felt like a funeral, my funeral. Miss Hackney stood in front of the main desk and waited until the last grown-ups were seated. I stood beside her and Stephen was next to me. My mom and dad were sitting off to the left. They seemed a million miles away, and I thought how nice it would feel to be sitting there between them again. It was hard to breathe. I knew what I wanted to say, but I wasn't sure how to begin or how to end. And then I thought, what about Stephen? What's he going to say? I mean, a guy who could make that kind of a handout could do anything. What if he raises one fist and shouts, "Hey everyone, kids rule, let's get this rebellion going." And then he starts running around the library, ripping books off the shelves and breaking the furniture. Or what if Miss Hackney changes her mind all of a sudden and she stands there and she points at us and says, "Nora and Stephen have been wicked, wicked children, and I've decided that they shall both be expelled from school forever. Out! Get out of here, both of you." Imagination can be torture, so I was glad when Miss Hackney started talking. She looked around the room slowly as she spoke. "We are here this morning because some serious mistakes have been made. I think all of you know what I'm talking about. Nora Rowley has asked if she could speak to the whole blue team, and I've given her permission. Stephen Curtis has something to say too." Then she looked at me. "Nora?" No long speech, no extra time to think, few quick sentences, and now it was all up to me. I looked out over those faces and I froze. I gulped. I opened my mouth. I tried to begin, but nothing came out. So Stephen said, "Nora and I started talking about something last week, and that's what she wants to tell you about." I nodded and I gulped again, and then I said, "Yes, it was about grades. I've been worried about grades for a long time. I think a lot of kids do that, but I wasn't just worried about getting good grades or bad grades. I was worried about grades themselves, about the whole idea of grades, because grades and test scores can make kids feel like winners or losers, and I didn't like that, because I saw some kids start thinking they were dumb after we took the mastery test last year, and they weren't dumb, not at all. So I wanted to do something about that, and I guess it wasn't so smart to think that I could change everything by myself or even with Stephen's help, or that everything could change quickly, because that's not how things happen. But I felt like I had to do something, anything. And then Stephen and I got this idea about getting zeros, but that made it look like we thought school was a joke or something. And it's not a joke. We don't think that. We just wanted everybody to look at the numbers and the letters and the test scores and really think about them. But things went too far, and then everybody got upset, and I don't want that. I know school's important, and it's important to do good work, and I think almost every kid does good work, and the teachers do too. And I didn't understand how a lot of teachers feel sort of the same way I do about testing and grades. So we have to do things together to make things better. And that's all I wanted to say, that I'm sorry about the trouble, because there are other ways to make things better. Stephen nodded and said, "Yeah, I'm sorry too, especially for that stuff about the rebellion. I know why it happened though, like why I made that flyer and everything, because it was exciting. All of a sudden I felt like my grades didn't have this huge power over me. And I guess I got carried away. Even so, I learned a lot. And I'm not going to be afraid of testing grades anymore. Not like I was, but I'm sorry about the trouble, like Nora said." I waited for more, but Stephen was done. I didn't see, but I think it was my dad who started the clapping, and then everyone clapped a little, even Miss Tursum. It was pretty embarrassing. But Miss Hackney held up her hands and it got quiet right away. She said, "I know we have all learned some important lessons today, and I know each of us will remember how important it is to always do our best work. And now I'd like the team teachers to take all the students to their homerooms until you are dismissed for lunch." And And that was it. We were done. No more talk of being suspended, no threats, no shouting, no finger shaking. I followed Miss Hackney's orders and started moving toward my homeroom teacher. It seemed too good to be true. It was. From about 15 feet away, the principal called, "Nora, please ask your mom and dad to join me back in my office for a few minutes, and you too." A minute later, we were face to face with Miss Hackney again, and then Dr. Trindler came in and sat down. Miss Hackney said, "I'm glad the morning has ended as calmly as it has, but there's another matter to discuss. We need to resolve Nora's placement. Dr. Trindler and I feel that she needs to be in the gifted program." My mom nodded and said, "Oh, we agree completely. We're going to have some independent testing done, and Nora's going to take a placement test at Shelbourne Academy next week, but the gifted program should be fine until we see where she really belongs." Dr. Trindler said, "Excellent. Most students currently in the program take 2 to 6 gifted periods each week, but in Nora's case, we feel that except for homeroom, gym, art, and music, she should be in the special classes pod all day." Someone so close to getting kicked out of school probably should have kept her mouth shut, but I couldn't. I didn't even raise my hand or ask if it was all right if I talked. I just blurted it out. "I don't want to be in the gifted program. I like my teachers, and I like my friends, and I want to stay where I am." Dr. Trindler smiled and said, "We can all understand your reluctance, Nora. Change is always a little scary, but you can't help being who you are. You are extremely intelligent. You just are. You're so far above average that the normal classes move too slowly for you." I shook my head. "But if I finish my work, or if I already understand what the teacher's talking about, then I can just think about something else. I've always had plenty to think about. I'll run math problems in my head. I'll think about the poems I've got memorized, or I can get out a book and read. I want to stay in the normal classes because I like normal kids. I don't want special treatment, and I don't want teachers who are always trying to push me ahead." Mrs. Hackney wasn't trying to butt in, and neither were my mom and dad. This was between me and Dr. Trindler. He said, "But think of it this way, Nora. How will you reach your full potential if you don't accept new challenges?" "I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but please think about that," I said. "Am I really trying to get away from new challenges? Do you think that trying to be normal after what's happened last week won't be a new challenge for me? And that stuff about working up to my full potential, who gets to say what my full potential is? An IQ test? Shouldn't I have something to say about what I want to accomplish? What if what I really want is to be normal? What if being normal is my big goal in life? Is there anything wrong with that? To be happy and read books and hang out with my friends and play soccer and listen to music, to grow up and get a job and read the newspapers and vote in elections and maybe get married someday? Would that be so terrible? I know that I'm different, and I hope I'll always be smart, but I don't want to get pushed ahead so that I'm always trying to do what someone else thinks a person with my intelligence ought to be doing. I want to use my intelligence the way I want to use it, and right now I want to be a normal kid." While I was talking, it was like the words poured into my mind and out of my mouth like milk from a pitcher. I had never given a speech like that before, and when I stopped, no one said anything. So I said, "May I go to my homeroom now? It's almost lunchtime and I don't want to be late. It's pizza today." "Yes, Nora, you may go." And my favorite part is that it wasn't Miss Hackney who said it. It was my mom. Lunchtime was a little weird. And my afternoon classes were strange too. There was a lot of whispering, and I felt kids looking at me almost every second. It may have been sort of like the way a movie star feels at the grocery store, but I just tried to mind my own business and have a regular day. I tried to be normal. The rest of the day had 2 best parts. The first was when I went to see Ms. Byrne right before I got on the late bus. I'd been playing soccer in the gym, so I was hot and sweaty and a little out of breath. I was cutting it close because I hoped the library would be empty. And it was. Miss Byrne was alone, sitting at her screen at the front desk. I think she saw me coming, but she didn't look up until I was right in front of her. She smiled and said, "Big day?" I smiled back. "Huge. Did you hear anything?" "Oh, yes," she answered. "More headline news in the teacher's room. Student saves her own skin, then wins follow-up debate. Very dramatic. I'm proud of you." I blushed. It wasn't so special. Miss Burns shook her head. That's where you're wrong. It was. Everything you've done has been quite special and remarkable and wonderful. I started to talk, but she said, and don't say that you couldn't have done it without my help. There's an old saying, nothing can stop an idea whose time has come, and this time is your time, Nora. Now hurry up, run and catch your bus. I said, well, thanks all the same, because you did help me tons. And I started to go. And then I turned back and said, Miss Byrne, what college has the best courses in library science? She said, there are a number of fine programs. Why do you ask? You know, I said, in case I want to reach my full potential. Miss Byrne laughed and shooed me out the door. But really, I wasn't kidding. The other best thing was after the bus ride. Ben got off at the corner too, but his house was in the other direction, so it was just me and Stephen walking along the road. He didn't say anything until we got to my driveway. He kicked at the gravel with the toe of his sneaker. What you said in library about kids thinking they were dumb after the test last year? That was me, wasn't it? I nodded. Yeah, it was you. He looked at my face and then at the ground. So all this was kind of about me? Yeah, kind of. But it was about me too. Well, yeah, he said. You mean about you being smart and everything, right? Yeah, I said, all that. He smiled and said, maybe it would have been kind of fun to be suspended a couple weeks, you think? I don't think so, I said. Too boring. A lot of stuff happens at school. Yeah, Stephen said, a lot. I couldn't think of anything else to say. Neither could Stephen. He said, so I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Yeah, I said, see you tomorrow. And then I went up my driveway and he walked toward his house. That 3 minutes with Stephen wasn't so much if you only look at the events like a scientist would, because really what happened? Hardly anything. Stephen hadn't tried to do something like carry my book bag. He hadn't looked into my eyes and said, Nora, you're my best friend in the whole world. And we hadn't had a deep discussion about school or test or grades. We just spent a little time together at the end of the day. Stephen talked to me like a friend, like I was a normal person. Just me, Nora. At that moment, nothing could have made me happier. And that's a fact. I loved it. Thank y'all for sharing this book with me. And I look forward to hoping that your teacher, Miss Brierley, can read to you again. Y'all take care. Stay safe.